Okay, for another edition of Fantasy versus Reality, I'm here to talk to you about Colin Kaepernick and his fake outrage. These days, fake outrage is everywhere, right? I mean, you got the Democrats, their fake outrage that Trump won the presidency. There's fake outrage everywhere, but this is actually the best case of it, the best example that I could probably come up with, and it's in the sports world. And since Colin Kaepernick's a douchebag in the first place, and he's horrible, he's horrible as an NFL player. Doesn't mean anything to say about him personally or about the fact that maybe he was pretty good at Nevada, but anyway. So Colin Kaepernick this year, his record is 0-8. Okay. His completion percentage is 54.8%. He's got 12 touchdowns compared to 10 turnovers. Now, for those of you that don't follow football real close, generally you want to have at least double or at least a 2-to-1 ratio from touchdowns to turnovers just to keep your job. Okay. The thing is, I believe that he cost Jim Harbaugh his job because Jim Harbaugh could never convince the ownership that he wasn't the right guy. And he's like, I've done everything I can with him, and he did do a good job with him. However, he wasn't able to really make him into a quality NFL quarterback. Another great statistic is his sack percentage. Probably one of the highest in history for a guy that's been around for 5 years. His career sack percentage is 9.1%. That means almost 1 out of 10 times basically 1 out of 11 times that he drops back, he gets sacked. Okay, compare that to Peyton Manning at 3.1% for his career, or you'll probably tell me, well, Peyton Manning, I mean, come on, that's a big comparison to But the reason I used Peyton Manning as the example was because he was immobile. I mean, he was a guy that couldn't get away from a sack, but just to make it fair, we'll compare him to second-rate Manning. For those of you who don't know, that's what I call Eli, second-rate Manning. And his was 4.6% compared to 9.1 for Kaepernick. So that when you get sacked that much, when you turn the ball over that much, when your completion percentage is that low, you just you guys that play fantasy sports, you're living in the fantasy, and that is that he has some extra value simply because he runs a little bit. But again, that's not reality. In reality, you'd never want this guy leading your team, and that's why Jim Harbaugh was against him, and that's why Harbaugh ended up having a lot of problems with management and left. Now, as far as the protest, though, this is where I get my outrage, okay? And that is from, and I can tell you right away that if one of my employees, if we were at some event and it was a tradition that we all sing the national anthem and so on, we all stand up and all these kinds of things, that if you don't follow that tradition, I would find a way to weed you out very quickly. Probably just fire you on the spot, but to make sure that everybody else understood that was not the behavior that we wanted to represent. Now, these guys are employees of the NFL, and in my opinion, they're employees of the team. In my opinion, I think that they should have cut him the first time he did it. But here's what happened. Okay, this happened in the preseason. Okay, right after Colin Kaepernick got the news that he was not going to be the starter. Now he's got an $11.9 million contract. Now those contracts are locked in before the preseason starts. For most athletes. For athletes that have been on the payroll, these kinds of things, that are in option years or whatever. It's like RG3 a couple years ago. If you remember, they were talking about why in the world they keep RG3 on the roster. Well, they had kept him past the date, which I think is in May or something. They'd kept him past the date to let him go, and without taking a hit against their salary cap. Now, they probably could have saved the money, but they still would have had it on their salary cap anyway. So the way they looked at it was, we'll hold the kid, we'll not play him, and just like they were going to do, or just like they did do in Washington with RG3, we'll not play him, we'll try to trade him, and then, if it turns out we can't trade him, at least we've got a backup that's, that has started before. So but the whole thing is, if he gets hurt during that year, then all that money's guaranteed, and on down the line. So anyway, this whole thing is political and contractual. And so what happened is he's making a protest against his own team because he's a crybaby douchebag. He's making this protest, so he's going to sit down during the national anthem to get somebody to notice him. Okay? Then after he does this, he gets to talking to his people, his agent and so on, and they probably got together, put their heads together and said, hey man, you're in some big trouble. They're really pissed off now. Okay, you thought they were mad at you before, but they're really pissed because they don't want the image of this. Okay, so in that 2-day period between when he did it and when he actually told people why he did it, they came up with a story. Okay, and they actually fabricated the perfect story because they made a story where the team couldn't cut him. Because if they did cut him, then they look like racists, right? No, don't want to do that. So we're going to have to we're going to have to keep you, right? And we're going to have to just tolerate your bullshit. So he figured, well, this gives me a blank check to do whatever I want. Sure enough, he comes back. He has his little press conference. He tells everybody, he's like, well, and to go back to the agent conversation, I can just imagine what the conversation was like. It was probably something like, well, what about those police shootings or that, what is it, Black Lives thing? Something's going on. I know. I heard about it in the news. There was a guy that got shot down south somewhere. I don't know. And of course, Kaepernick was like, yeah, let's go with that, right? Let's nobody. Then probably the secretary came in and was like, oh no, that was in Missouri. No, it was in Charlotte, North Carolina. Oh no, wait, it was in Atlanta. And then of course it was in all those places, right? I mean, we do have a problem with police being overzealous and shooting black people. I mean, there's no question about it. I'm not black, obviously, but if I was, I certainly would be very cautious around police because, man, they shoot your ass. I mean, what? Are you kidding me? I mean, most of these people, I mean, they're in traffic stops and stuff. I mean, like the guy that got off recently in I think it was South Carolina, they had a hung jury or whatever. I was like, I'd like to meet the asshole on the jury that's going, yeah, I don't know. He shot him running off. He must have been scared for his life. He's like, he shot him in the back 5 times. I don't know how that's, I just don't, whatever, right? I mean, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but, the fact is, we do have a problem, right? But this isn't Kaepernick's issue, okay? Kaepernick just jumped on the issue because he found himself between a rock and a hard place because in the preseason, he had screwed up, and he knew it. He knew that making that, I don't want to call it a protest, making it making that gesture had put him in a bad position because they weren't going to start him anyway. Now, they did find out that, their starting quarterback that they had chosen was even worse, right? I mean, so they did find out, and surprisingly, a lot of people embraced what he was doing, right? But it's just kind of a funny situation because his intent originally was not to make a big deal out of it. Okay, he was not supportive of this movement or supportive of anything. He just happened to jump on the bandwagon because he found himself in a bad position. But good for him and good for the movement because they have actually been able to get people to notice a little more and get more people involved. And now there's some guys I've seen, Eamon Shumpert from the NBA and a few others are getting together to actually take action instead of just taking a knee at the stupid song. They're gonna actually raise money for the families and help them, fight for justice and so on. And like I said, good for them and good for the movement. But I just want to point out that this whole thing from day one was Colin Kaepernick being the punk that he is. Okay? That's all it was. That's all it'll ever be. Now, if you've listened this far, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys listening to the other videos that we have as well. In reaction to Colin Kaepernick being such a punk, and for you listening this far, we're going to do a one-time deal where if you go sign up at Jockbrokers right now, after listening to this video, just go sign up at Jockbrokers. All you have to do is verify your email. So you get a link in your email, you click the link to verify that you're a real person, you're not a bot or whatever, and you'll get a welcome message from us. When you get that welcome message, you send it back in and mention this video. We'll give you a free $50 credit. Free $50 just to try it out. Okay, you're gonna love Jockbrokers. Just don't invest in Kaepernick. All right, he's selling right now at about $4.99 or something. Please don't invest in Kaepernick. If you do, leave your comments. I'll be happy to argue back. But obviously this guy is a first-class douchebag. He needs to be out of the league, and he will be. He's well on his way. Thanks for listening. Go to Jockbrokers, sign up, get your free credit. We'd love to have you. Have a great night.